back to my channel. So I bought this Mavis Hotel Transylvania doll off of Amazon. She's so cute, and I just wanted to give her like a mini makeover. I overall like the design of this doll, so I just kind of wanted to give her a new face. She has decent articulation. Her arms have a joint and her legs have a joint. Her arms and legs are a little bit weird because, like, as you guys can kind of see, her like arm wrist thing is like kind of rubbery, like an old Barbie doll. It's weird. This doll gives me serious nostalgia for me in middle school when I was like full-blown living my Hot Topic fantasy. All black, all red, everything. I ended up keeping her hair, but I kind of regret that later. Well, kind of massively regret that later. Her hair is just terrible. I don't know what type of hair this is, but it's horrendous. She got some stains on her arms, I'm assuming from the cape, just because of the shape of it. I didn't know how to like get them off. I mean, I couldn't really sand it because it was like that weird rubbery plastic. She ends up keeping it, just try to ignore it, because I didn't know how to get it off. Before we pop her head off using the hot water method, I took a piece of her hair off of her head and I put it into my hot water. I don't know what type of hair this is, so I didn't know if it would like melt if I put it into boiling water or whatever. So I'm just doing this as kind of a test. It ended up reacting fine, so in the water she went. After letting her head soak for like 2 minutes, I popped her head off, and it was so much easier getting her head off than it was getting it back on. Like, this neck peg contraption mechanism, y'all will see later, it does not make any sense, and it was so hard, so difficult to get her head back on. Since her hair was like frizzy and hard and just overall kind of gross, I put her head into fabric softener to see if it would like silkify it. Soaking her head really didn't do much of anything for the quality of her hair. It's pretty garbage after soaking it, but we're going to use some extra strength nail polish remover and get all the paint off her face. I figured her sculpt was probably pretty adorable underneath all that paint, and it seriously is. Like, look how cute her little mouth is and her little nose. I'm excited. I spray the doll 3 times with Mr. Super Clear and get to work. My pencils were showing up crazy pigmented on this doll, which was awesome. The reason why it was doing that is because this doll is a different kind of like vinyl or plastic or whatever than Monster High and Ever After High dolls. If you guys are familiar with those, their like heads are kind of like squishy, you can like squeeze them and stuff. This doll's head was pretty hard, which made the plastic or the pencil show up really, really well on the plastic, which was awesome. Like, look at the vibrancy, you guys. I know this might sound obvious, but try not to speed through these beginning stages where you're drawing on the eyes and stuff and trying to make them even. It's really important because you're basically laying down the groundwork for the entire face. Something I've done in the past is kind of like speed through the eyes, and I realized later that they're not quite as even as I would like them to be. It's something I've been trying to like pay quite a bit of attention to lately, so I figured I'd mention it. I'm still sticking with Mavis's initial design, so I'm giving her blue eyes like she has in the movie. Shading around the face, I mainly use tones of brown, purples, blues, pinks, reds, shades like that. This doll doesn't really have a molded on Cupid's bow, but I think it's a really cute thing on a face, so I basically just shade one on. I believe at this point I'm on my second spray of MSC, and you can kind of tell that because I'm starting to layer details up. So for example, right now I'm trying to get a gradient on the eyes from a darker blue to a lighter blue, and I can achieve that because I just had sprayed her, so you can layer things on top of different colors. When you cannot layer things, that's when it's time to spray the doll again. I spray about 6 times while I'm working, so so it's 3 in the beginning, 6 while I'm working, and 3 at the end to set it. That's just my process though, do whatever works for you. Let's talk about brows. So I've been trying to kind of master brows with my customs lately. The way that I do them is towards like the innermost part of the eye, I kind of stick the brow hair straight up, and then as they go towards the tail of the brow, they get gradually more sideways. After that, I draw sideways V shapes starting at the middle of the brow, going to the end of the tail. I know the lines going towards the middle of her eye look a little bit crazy, but they get less intense as I add more detail to the eyes later on. Yeah, it's just, again, this doll's head is like so hard that stuff just showed up crazy pigmented. Way more pigmented than I'm used to. Y'all know I'm strange and I like me some veins, so I give her some veins on her temples and her forehead and her brow bone. This is just kind of branch-like squiggly lines in those areas. I'm pressing down pretty light because, again, this doll's head is so hard, so everything is showing up crazy pigmented. Taking a Q-tip, I dab whatever color I want the pupil to be on the middle of the eye. This kind of gives it a more blended but pigmented look in that area for the pupil, as opposed to using a watercolor pencil, which is just a little bit more harsh. With a super sharp black watercolor pencil, I do the bottom lashes, which are just kind of V shapes on the waterline. I was initially going to give her half eyebrows, but I decided eyebrows with a tail just kind of suited her a little bit better. Wetting a black watercolor pencil, I went over her lashes and her lash line just to make that area kind of like draw your eye in a little bit more and look very, very dark. I feel like, I'm not trying to toot my own horn or anything, but I feel like my paint game has gotten a little bit stronger lately. With a dark blue metallic paint, I put that on top of her pupil just to make it look a little bit more mysterious. I also go over the brow hairs with watercolor from a watercolor pencil. Since everything's showing up so pigmented on this doll, I decided to do the eye shines initially with watercolor pencil, white watercolor pencil. I'm going to go on top of them with a wet watercolor pencil, or paint from a wet watercolor pencil. This is my first time repainting a doll with an open mouth, and I think she looks so cute. I was intimidated at first, but like, if you guys feel intimidated by like open mouth dolls, don't, because it is so cute. Taking Vallejo gloss paint, I put some gloss on her lips. I am going to also put gloss on her eyes, but not yet. When you put gloss on the eyes, it's really hard to photograph dolls, so I do that once I'm done taking all my photographs. We gotta try to make this hair look presentable even though it's a mess. So I trim off some of like the seriously stray hairs, and I also trim her bangs, and then I go and I put a little bit of extra strength gel on her hair to slick it down. I carve off the seam lines and I sand off the panties, and then I blush the body using basically the tones that I used on the face. Putting this doll's head and body back together was impossible. It made no sense. So I tried to like warm her head up for like 5 minutes, and it just would not go back on her body. The neck peg mechanism, like you see how like her neck hole is so small and then that ball thing is so big, it just wouldn't fit. So I had to cut 2 little like slits on both sides of her neck hole so it would squeeze on top. And her head actually took some damage while I was trying to reattach her head to the body, so I had to clean up it had like a black smear on it from her beauty mark, so I just took a Q-tip and some water and sort of cleaned it up, and it cleaned it up really easily, but it was just a nightmare to restyle her hair. It sucked. I'm going to give her shoes just a little bit of a repaint, so I ended up shading them in with a darker red. And I also painted like the front part of the shoes with some white, and I put some sparkles and gave her laces, and I just wanted to spruce them up a little bit. Once I was done repainting the shoes, I put a coat of the Vallejo gloss paint on them. Here she is, little cutie pie head. I love her so much, I really do. This was a really good experience for me because, if you guys don't know, I mainly work on Ever After High and Monster High dolls like lots of doll repainters do, and they're fantastic bases, but they're discontinued, so one would assume that eventually someday they're not going to be easy to find. You can find them very easily now on eBay and buy like giant lots of them and stuff, so if you guys want them, I would suggest picking them up now. But there are other dolls that you can work on. Like this doll has really decent articulation, and I mean, I really like how she turned out, honestly. I also picked up a Descendants doll that is coming in the mail soon. And those dolls are great. They have great articulation, their face sculpts are cute. So what I'm trying to say is there's other options out there that you guys can try. And honestly, it's really fun to like try a new face sculpt. At least I think so. It's exciting, you know? So yeah, if you guys like how she turned out, like this video, subscribe, makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day. Bye!